Hi, today Salesforce Lightning Day 25. Let's see what are we going to learn. Today's agenda is we'll quickly go through the previous session. We'll talk about one of the use case. Yesterday we have discussed one use case and today we will discuss another use case for the application event. And then we'll talk about the action override. And then we'll talk about homework with conclusion. Now quickly, what did we learn in the last session?
Application event.
Application event. We have seen one of the application event and we have seen the one of the use case for the component event and then application event. Now, before jumping on to the application event, quickly, I wanted to share one thing. So you see here, the description comments automatically added, right? So these comments, whenever you save the class or any Visual Studio, or if you are saving this class, these comments are automatically added. How this is adding is, we have a extension called Salesforce Documenter. Salesforce Documenter. I'm just sending this in the chat. So if you install this Documenter, so what will happen is once you installed it, so whenever we save this, immediately the description will be added automatically. So once you install this, just click on here the extension. Click on this, you will see extension setting. You will see the extension setting. When you click on extension setting, it will go to the extension setting. Just enable this, enable for Apex, enable for Lightning, enable for Visual Studio, and then add your username. You need to do this setup. Once this setup is done, the comments are automatically added. Even for the method also it will add. So for the method, so what you need to do is you just hover the method name, right click on it. And then here it is a insert Apex method header. Insert Apex method header. So once you click on this, then what will happen? The description is automatically description, author, parameter, what are the parameters that we are passing, what is the return value, everything will be added automatically. Everything added automatically. So only the thing is that you need to install the Salesforce Documenter. This is the extension you need to install. Once you install it, just click on this setting and go to the extension setting and enable all this. Enable date format, put the date format, enable for Apex, enable for Visual Force, wherever you wanted to enable that auto adding the comments, then you can enable those and then you can add the username. Fine, so let's move on to our topic. Any questions on this extension? Okay, so let's move on. So yesterday we have seen the application event. What is the application event? What is the application event? Definition of the application event?
Where an event can be handled by any component. It is fired. Event is fired from component instance of a component.
Yeah. So basically, application event is a pub/sub model. Pub/sub model where if I am firing an event from any component, if I am firing a component from the child component, then handler can be anybody. Anyone can handle the event. So irrespective of the hierarchy, event can be handled by any component. So let's see another example. Let's build another use case today. So the use case is, for example, I have three components. One is a account search, second one is a contact, and third one is a opportunity, right? It's not a search. Basically, I'm displaying the data, contact details and opportunity details. First one is I'm searching the account details here. I'm searching name, industry, and I'll click on a submit. Once I click on a submit, what will happen is it should show the related contacts in the contact component. It should show the related opportunity in the opportunity component. On click of the submit button in the component 1, component 2, component 3 should be displaying the result. So how this is going to happen? Like we'll be having a event on the component 1. We'll have an event on the component 1. Once I click on a submit button, right? So we'll have a Apex class here. In the Apex class, we will be implementing a method 1, method 2, and method 3. 3 methods I'll be implementing. Why 3 methods? One method is I need to capture the account details. One method is I need to query the contact details and pass it to the contact 2, the component 2. And the another method is I need to query the opportunity based on the account ID and pass it to the opportunity component. So that's the reason we have a 3 method here. So the first one, for example, I'm searching here some data. Let's suppose I'm searching here Infosys. I'm searching Infosys. When I search Infosys and the industry, I'll give some industry here. And then as soon as I click on a submit, the first thing is that it will send the details to the method 1. It will send a details to the method 1. And method 1 will take the input of this component and it will try to find, based on the search criteria, do I have any other account in the system? If there is an account ID, so what I'm going to return? I'm going to return back the account ID to the C1, component 1. Now, once the component 1 receives the ID, it will pass the ID to the event. The component 1 will pass the ID to the event. Now, the event, as soon as it passes to the event is going to send it to the component 2. The ID is going to pass it to component 2. And this ID, component 2 will take it up and it will pass it to the method 2. From the method 2, we will receive a related contact records. Similarly, event is going to pass it to the component 3. The ID gets passed. And once the component 3 receives the ID, it will send the ID to method 3. And then based on the ID, method 3 will be querying the data. It is querying the data of opportunity and returning the data to the opportunity component. So that means when I'm calling the method to method 3, what I'm doing, I'm passing the ID. Set params ID I'm passing here. From the component 2, when I'm calling the method 2, I'm passing the set params ID. And then it is receiving the result. Similarly, for the component 3, when event pass the ID to component 3 pass the set params to the method 3 and it will return the result back to the data table. Return back the data to the data table. So now what I'm going to do is this entire scenario we are going to implement right now. So the first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the Apex class. In the Apex class, I have a method 1, method 2, and method 3. Method 1 is for account. Method 1 is for account. This is for the account search. So then I need to return back the ID. Now the third one is contact. And the method 3 is opportunity. So I'll be implementing these three methods in the Apex class. So let's go ahead and implement that. Now I'll create a new class, right click, create a Apex class. Let's say that account, contact, opportunity. Now, let's take out this. Now. So @ Aura enabled, because this is going to call from Lightning component. So another Aura method. I need a 3 Aura enabled methods. Perfect. So inside this, I'm removing the try catch. Now, method 1 name is, we are going to search the account. Method 2 name is, I'm getting the contact details. Get contacts. Method 3 is get opportunity. Get opportunity. Method 1 return type is string. Method 2 I'm returning the list of contacts. List of contact. Method 3 I'm returning the list of opportunity. List of opportunity. Now this is my method. Now right now when I save it, it is adding only to the class. But if you want on the method also, if you want the comments, what you can do is right click on this, insert Apex method handler. So it is adding the handler here. So I'll add this at the end. Now per search account, I'm passing the, what are the values I'm passing from the component to the method 1?
Input fields button.
Name and industry we are passing. String, account name, comma, string, account, industry. These two are passing. For the get context, what we are passing?
ID, string ID.
ID, account ID we are passing.
String ACC ID.
Right. Now building this is done. Now based on this account name and industry, I need to get the account ID. How can I get the account ID based on these two values?
String. Local query.
Socle query. So I need to store it into the accounts equal to
Select ID name industry from account. Where ID
Name equals to column.
equal to
ACC name.
colon is ID
ACC
Or
name.
or and.
Why or condition? And industry
colon equals to colon ACC IND.
right.
Ma'am, ACC name I is spelling.
Okay.
Name spelling after where name spelling. Okay.
Okay. Now we are querying the data. Now once we query the data, let me check whether I'm getting the value inside this or not. How can I check whether I have a data inside this accounts or not?
Accounts dot size is greater than 0 or is not empty. Size is empty.
Let's take it as a size greater than 0. Now, once we have a greater than 0, I wanted to take the first record. There are multiple records. I'll be finding it with the same name industry because we have created so many records. So I might be having so many records with. So with that, I'll take only the first ID. I'll take only the first ID. This first ID, what I'll do is I'll store it into the string ACC ID. ACC ID equal to accounts 0th one, which is a first record. Then this is else. In case if I do not find anything. In case if I do not find anything, so what I'll do is I'll just say that ACC ID equal to error. Now finally, I'll be returning the ACC ID. Perfect. My first method is completed. Now let me add the comments. Right click on this, insert Apex method handler. Now the description, search account records based on account name and account industry. Okay, so the first one is done. Now the next, get contacts. What are we doing here in the get contacts?
We need to pass the account ID as ID. Contacts in circle query.
Contact list. Select
ID,
First name,
last name,
last
email,
email from contact.
Contact.
Where
Where account ID.
contact ACC ID.
contact,
Account ID equals to
Account
column
ID equal to
ACC ID.
ACC ID.
right. Now I'm returning this list. So return contact list.
EYN list.
Perfect. My second method is also completed. Let me add the comments. Retrieving the related contacts based on account ID. Perfect. And the third method, list of opportunity.
Opportunity.
So let's take select ID, comma, name, comma, stage name, comma, amount from opportunity where account ID equal to ACC ID. Now, my third method is also done. I'm going to return OPP list. Done. So let's add the Apex method. Retrieving the opportunity based on the account ID. Now save. Done. So now I'll be deploying this source to org.
In contact or opportunity, We have to return a if else because if no contact is there, so return blank.
Which one? Yes. So, right. So let's check that. If contact list dot size is greater than 0, then we'll return this. Else return null. Similarly, let it be there. Now, for opportunity, we will do it later. So right click on this, deploy source to org. Okay, it's deployed, done. Now my first step is completed, which is the Apex. Now the second one which I'm going to implement is event. For this event, I need attribute called account ID. Which event I'm implementing here? The application event I'm implementing. Application event I'm implementing. Now let's go. Let's create the event. Aura right click, create a Aura event. Now let's say that LE underscore ACC contact opportunity. Okay, so this is the application event. And inside this, I need a attribute. Aura colon attribute. Name equal to ACC ID. Type equal to string. Now my event is also completed. Right click on this, deploy source to org. Okay, so event is also completed. Now the next thing which I'm going to do is implementing the component 1. Implementing the component 1. In this component, I have a 2 input. I have a 2 input and 1 button is there. 2 input, 1 button. As well as in this same component, I'm going to register the event. So on click of this button, I'm going to register as well as fire the event. Now let's go ahead and implement. Now, right click on this Aura and create a Aura component LC underscore. Let's say that this is a C1 ACC account contact opportunity. Yes, Aura component. Now, in the Aura component, couple of things which I need to do. One is two inputs, 2 input fields,
1 button.
and 1 button.
Registering the event.
and then registering the
insert the event.
Perfect. Now first I'll implement the two buttons and two input fields and one button. Now let's go ahead, use the lightning card, lightning colon card, title equal to search account. Now inside this, I'll use the lightning input, label, enter, account name, now I need to store this value.
Value.
Have the attribute we need to take.
I need a
One
attribute. So let's declare the attribute, aura colon,
attribute.
attribute name equal to ACC name.
Type equal to
Let's take it as a string. Now I need another attribute,
yes.
industry. So let's refer this v dot ACC name.
Dot.
Now another one is enter the industry. Account industry. V dot account industry. Perfect. Now the next thing which I have is button. Lightning. Lightning button. Lightning button label equal to search. On click of this button. Let's call the handler method handle search. Perfect, my button is done. My button is completed. So this is completed. Now the next thing is that I need to register it. For application component, how can we register it?
Register event.
Register event.
Aura colon.
Name
Name,
equal to
Name,
Any-
I can give anything.
anything.
Like I'll just give a sample. And then
type equal to
Type C colon.
C colon.
हमें कर दी.
Only
event name. Attribute register event lightning card. Perfect. So my component is done. Now I'll go to the handle search in the controller. Let's go to the controller. This is the handle search. Now in the handle search, the first thing is I need to capture what is the user has entered. So let's capture that. Component dot
Component dot
get
v dot ACC name.
ACC name. Let me store this into var.
name.
Now the next one, I'll take it as a industry component.
Component dot get
Get V
v dot ACC
industry.
ACC industry. Perfect. So this is done. Now what I need to do, I need to call the Apex class. From the submit, I need to call the Apex class. When I call the Apex class, I need to pass the name industry here. Now where can we implement the calling Apex class?
In component.
Yeah.
Helper method.
Helper.
Here I need to have a
Component.
component and as well as name,
Name and
name and industry. Now calling the Apex class where action. Yes.
component dot get
Component dot get
C colon method.
C colon method name.
C dot method name.
What was the method name? Search account.
So
It's dot. Correct.
so one thing
Yes.
I do remember, like in Lightning component, we need to mention the class name, right? Which class helper going to call?
Yes, we need to mention that.
I'll mention that, right?
Right. So let's go ahead and mention that in the component control.
controller equal to class name.
Class name.
Right. Now we are in the helper action dot
Set param.
set params. And what are the details that we are passing?
Name.
Industry.
Name.
Is
ACC.
name.
Like a
Has to
ACC
be
name,
same as the Apex.
ACC in the
Name. ACCIND.
CIND.
Colon IND. Perfect. Next, after set param, action
Set
dot
callback. Action dot set callback. This comma function response.
response. Once I have the response, if then first I
If,
need to get the state.
State equal response dot
Response dot get state. If state equal to
success. Where
okay, let's see later. So state equal to success. Once I have the details, I need to get the result. Response dot get return value. Now here, from the Apex class, when we are returning, if I have the records, I'm returning the ID. Otherwise, I'm returning the error. So what I'm going to do is, in order to check that, so I'm going to specify result if it is a not equal to error, because I'm returning the error from Apex. So in case if it is not error, that means it is a valid one. It is a valid one. So in that case, I'm going to fire the event once it is successful. Once I have the data, I'm going to fire the event. How can I fire the event in the application event?
$A dot
Dollar
A dot get C dot E dot
E
C
dot.
colon tab
E dot C colon
E colon
lightning event name.
event name.
Now, while calling this, we need to pass the parameters. Set params. Now here I need to pass it. What is my event? What is the attribute that I have given in the
ACC ID.
event?
ACC ID net.
ACC ID.
ID.
ACC ID to result. Now I'm going to fire the event, evt dot fire. Perfect. Firing is done. Now at the end here, because we are calling the Apex method, now I need to do the $a dot enqueue action. Perfect. So my component is done. Is something wrong here? Action dot set callback. Okay. So my component 1 is done. Component 1 is done. So what I'll do is I'll deploy this component 1, deploy source to org. Yes. Now I'm going to call this method from the controller because we are not calling here controller helper dot
Helper method.
method function, and we are passing the component. This is done. Something is wrong here. Enqueue action. $a dot evt. Function. Okay, so now let's deploy this component, deploy source to org. Okay, it's deployed perfectly fine. Now I need to implement the component 2, component 3. For the component 2, I have to build a data table here, right? So in this data table, I can give the column. I have to build the data table as well as the handler, the event handling here. So two things. One is I need to handle the event, and the second one is data table. Both of them I need to implement. Then I need to call the Apex here also. I need to call the Apex. While calling the Apex, I need to pass the ID, account ID, I need to pass it. Now let's go back to the Visual Studio. Close. Now I'm going to implement another component here. Close this. Right click on Aura, create a Aura component. C2. This is the second one. This is the second component. Now, here also we need to call the controller. Controller
Class equal to class.
equal to this is my class. Okay. Now here couple of things, which is the first one is a handler. And then I need to build the data table. So let me build the data table here. So I'll put a lightning card. Lightning card. Title. Contact details. Now inside this, I'll build a data table, lightning colon data table. And for this, we need a key field, ID, and I need an attribute to store the
Data.
data. So let me create an attribute here. Aura colon attribute name equal to, we are storing the contact details. So contact details type equal to, let's give the object. Now another attribute to store the columns. Aura colon attribute name equal to columns type, let's take it as a list. Perfect. Now data is stored in this v dot attribute name, and then we have another attribute called columns. Columns equal to
V dot
v dot
column.
columns. This is data table. Now, initially my data table is null. When I'm searching the data, that time it is everything is null. So when there is no value, I do not want to display the table. So what I'll do that, for that, I'm going to introduce a flag. I'm going to introduce a flag and the type equal to Boolean. So default value for this flag is false. Default value is false. And what I'll do is, if this flag is true, then only I'm going to show this lightning card. Otherwise, I'll not show. Aura colon if is true equal to exclamation v dot flag. If this is a true, by default, I'm making it as a false. Here it is a false. So whenever I have the data in the table, that time I'll make it as a true. Okay. Done. So this is my second component. This is done. Now I have to go to the controller. Now in the controller, before going to the controller, I need to implement the handler. Now Aura colon handler, this is to handle the application event. How to handle the application event?
Event called
Event equals.
Event equal to C colon LE underscore
event name.
event name, and then action is, let
Exclamatory
me
C
call
dot
method handle event.
handle event.
Handle event. Perfect. So data table column, I'll build it into the same handler. So let me go to the controller. In the controller, let me build the
Handle event.
column. So in order to build the column, where call equal to, so we need, let's take it as a 3 columns. Okay. So now label colon first name. Then we have a
Field name.
name colon,
Name,
first
first name. Type,
type, colon,
text,
it's a text,
text.
similarly, I'll have a last name, field name is last name, it's a text, and then I'll take the email, type text. Perfect. Now I need to set this into the component.set. We have an attribute called v.columns. v.column is call.
Call.
You can do this, or what you can do is you can directly take this, cut and implement it here. So that I need no need a extra of this. Okay. Now, in this second component, before calling the method to, what do I need the information in the component to?
As the ID.
Can you hear me, guys?
Okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Get the event ID.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, we can.
We can hear
Yes, ma'am,
you.
we can hear you.
Can any one of you speak, please?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I can hear you. Okay, fine. So component 2 is needed the ID, because before it goes to the method, component 2 is required the account ID. Now for that, first thing what I need is I need to get the account ID from the application event. In order to get that, I'm using the get params. Get params ACC ID. Now this I'll store it into the one variable ACC ID. Perfect. Now I have the details. Now next thing is that I need to call the Apex method. I need to call the Apex method component, comma, I need an account ID here. Now where action equal to component dot get c dot, what is my method name?
check count.
Get contacts or contact? Get contacts. Now next is action dot set params. And the parameter is ACC ID, colon, right is coming.
Action map.
Action dot set params ACC ID. I need to pass the ACC ID. Now action dot set callback. This comma function response. No. Where state equal to response dot get state. If state equal to success. Then var get the result. Result equal to response dot get return value. And then finally, whatever we are getting the data, then set it to the our variable called b dot contact details. Contact details. Here I'll be setting the data result. Now another one which we have is flag. Initially it is a false. Now once I have the data, what I'll do is I'll set the flag to true. Perfect. And then finally, I need to call $a dot enqueue action. Let's save and call this from the controller. Helper dot helper method. And then I'm calling it. Done. Now let's deploy the component to right click, deploy source to org. Perfect, it is deployed. Now the third one is opportunity details. For the opportunity details, I'll create another component. Right click on this, create Aura components. Now let me take the name of it. Right click, create an Aura component. Let's say this is 3. Now it is similar to the whatever we have in the this component. So I'll take a copy of this. Only the changes here we are querying we are displaying the opportunity detail. So instead of contact, I'll say opportunity. Opportunity details. So this opportunity, what is topic? So let me take op details. And here I'm displaying the opportunity. Perfect. So I have a opportunity details, columns, flag, and I'm calling the handle event. So here also I have a controller. In the controller, let me use the same logic, Control A, Control C. Let's go to the controller. But here we have a different fields. Opportunity name, which is a text, and then stage name, text, and we have a amount. Now helper method. Let's go to the helper. Helper is same as the other one. Control A, Control C. Now here, instead of the get contacts, where is it? Get opportunity. Get opportunity, passing the account ID. Then finally, we need to store the data into the op details. Op details, let's say. Done with component 3. Now right click. Let me deploy all these components. deploy source to org. Perfect. Now all three components are deployed. Now we have implemented everything. Now finally, I need to implement the application. So let's go to the developer console. Let's close all of this. Let me check whether I received all of them or not. Okay, I received C1, C2, C3, all of them, I have received it. File, new, I'll create a new application. LA, account contact, app. So first thing on the extends equal to force:/SLDS.
SLD.
Now inside this, I need to call three components. Now what I am going to do is these three components, I'll place it into the layout because I need to divide my page into size of 444 because all three will be displaying here one, here one, here one. So each component should be displayed one after the other. So what I'll do is I'll use the lightning layout. Now this layout, I'll divide each one of them.
Layout item.
Spelling.
Lightning
Layout item. Size 4.
Isaac.
And let me add the space. Around small. Now, this I'll be needed 3 times. Okay. Now for the first one, I'll be calling the first component C:. This is my first component. In the second, I'll be calling the second component C:, C2. And then in the third one, I'll be calling the third component C:, third one. Now let's click on save. Click on preview. Okay, so now I can see only one component, which is a search account. Enter the account name, industry. So let me go to my application. Sales. Accounts. Let me find out the good one. Good account. So Genie Point. Genie Point has the industry and the name. Does this has a contacts? One contact, 3 opportunities. Let me link other contacts also. So I'm updating some records here so that within the account, I can see at least 3 contacts and 3 opportunities. 3 contacts and 3 opportunities. So if I go to the related, I can see 3 contacts and 3 opportunities are here. Now, let me Genie point and type industry is. Let me copy this Genie point, and this is my industry. Click on search. Something is wrong. What is happening? So the best is to check my logs. Nothing is there here. Source component C1. In the C1, am I getting the result? In C2, am I passing the account ID and am I getting the result? C3, am I getting the account ID and am I passing the account ID there? And what is the result? Now let's click on the search. Okay, type is success. Then do. What is my result? Result, I'm doing it perfect. So I have an account ID. This is a C2. In the C2, we are not getting the account ID in C2. Let's see what is the problem. Action, then event.get params. Am I not getting the value here?
Ma'am, yeah, I think so. Get param only, not S.
Is it a small ID or is it a capital? Get param. Okay. Similarly for C3. Okay. So let me refresh here. Now, copy this. Genie point, and this is my industry. Click on search. Okay, I'm getting the ID. Okay, so I'm getting the opportunity details, but nothing is displayed. But nothing is displaying it. Problem with the data table. Why it is not displaying with the data table?
Ma'am, columns, exclamation, curly brace exclamation in the component.
Where it is missing column?
Exclamation V dot.
Exclamation V dot, ma'am.
Sorry.
Columns is equal to curly brace exclamation v dot column.
Okay. So let's go to the C3. Let's refresh. Hmm. Okay, so what I'll do is at least I'll check whether it is displaying the columns or not. Columns are not displaying it.
The columns will be displayed on handle event, right? When you click on the button, it's not a init event.
Is there anything wrong with the columns?
No, I mean, you have to click on the button, right? Because it's not an init event to display the columns on initialization. It's a handle event. So when you click on the button, yes, an amount type. Hello? Hello? Hello?
You are audible, Archana. I think so.
Okay.
Issue at more
Okay,
ma'am
so
side.
let's say. Now let me refresh this. Still no. Is there anything wrong? V dot columns, label equal to name, field name, type
Ma'am, no,
text.
ma'am, no need to implement init handler, ma'am, or column handler init function.
Oh, is it? Can you speak now?
In the component, yes, ma'am. Or a column handler init.
Can somebody speak?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Ma'am,
Hold on a second. Can you speak now?
ma'am.
Still I cannot hear.
Hello.
How about now?
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Okay. Can you guys speak?
Ma'am.
So, okay. So right now, the problem is with here the component. There was a mistake was there. Okay, so let me search here Jenny point and then apparel. Let me click on a search button. So what is happening? It is displaying all the contact details as well as all the opportunity details. Everything it is displaying the data. Now we have implemented this entire thing. When we click on a submit button, it is going to method 1, retrieving the ID, sending it to the event, and this event is passing to component 2, component 3, and component 2 is calling the second method, component 3 is calling the third method, and these methods are returning the result back. So this account has 3 contacts and 3 opportunities. Now let's move on. The next one is action override. Okay, before I move on the action override, homework. Same thing implemented for let's take a price book. So we have a price book or a position. Now for this position, what are the hiring? Okay. So what is needed here is you are going to get the information based on the hiring manager. Based on the hiring manager. So search for a hiring manager. Search for hiring manager name and the location. Search for hiring manager name and the location. So based on that too, you will be getting the positions. Based on that, you will be getting the position. Okay, so that is the assignment. Now moving on to the action override. So action override, we know that if I wanted to pass the data from parent to component, if I wanted to pass the data from parent to component, there are multiple ways which we can pass it. Multiple ways we can pass the data. So that means I can use the application event. I cannot use the component event. If I wanted to pass the data from the parent to component, I cannot use the component event. Component event is up direction. It's a bubbling. But what we are doing, from the parent to child, we are passing it. From the parent to child, we are passing. When we are passing the data from parent to child, component event does not work. One way is application event. Now with the application event, what is happening is when we implement an application event, assume that I need only one parent and one child needs to have a connection. Only these two needs to have a connection. Whatever the other parent, other child, whatever the other components I have, it should not touch this event, whatever this event is there. But with the application event, what will happen? It is going to give the access to the wider audience. Inside this application, whoever the components are there, everybody can access that application event. But I do not want other component to talking to this event. Now you can say that I'll not implement the handle event. If you do not implement the handle event also, when you implement the application event at the back end, the access is going to share, right? So it will be sharing the data to everybody. That we do not want. What I want is it should be restricted to the only parent and child component. Now, whatever the parent is there, this data only it should go to the child component. Only it should go to the child component. Outside, no access to anybody. Only the event should happen between these two. Only event should happen between these two, which is called as an action override. Action override is another alternative event. Assume that similar like a application event, action override is also another event. So there will be an interview question. If I have to pass the parent to component, what are the different ways that I can pass the details from the parent to component? If I wanted to pass the attribute values, what are the ways that I can pass it? So one way is application event, another way is action override, right? So action override, using this action override, what I can do is in the child component, I'll be implementing a certain method, a handler event or some method I'll be implementing here, right? So this method can directly call from parent. The child component method, directly parent can call this. Directly parent can call this method. So I have a parent component. So this is my parent component. Now within this, I have implemented another child component. I have implemented another child component. So in this child component, we have a methods. I have a method. So for example, I have implemented a method 1. Now this method, ideally, this method can be called by within the controller, or if it is method is there in the helper, can be called by controller, or within the helper class can be called. Now, by using this action override, what will happen is, now my parent can directly call the child component method. Instead of calling this even, what I can do is I can directly call. So from the parent, I can directly call the method 1 of the child component using the action override. So that means action override enables to call child component method from the client side, from the controller of the parent component. So how can we do that? So in the child component, I need to enable certain thing. What is that? I need to use the aura colon method. If I use a aura colon method tag, aura tag, if I use this tag, that means parent has a flexibility to access child component method directly from the parent controller. That means child 1 is now have a open access to the parent if I implement a aura method. Now, so the question from the interviewer, if I wanted to pass a attribute value, from the parent component, first thing is application event, second thing is action override. There is another one, you can directly call your child component from the parent component. Here you can pass the value, for example, contact list, right? Contact data. So you can pass directly from the parent component when you are calling the child component, like this you can call. But using the action override, what you are doing is, here you are passing the value, attribute value you are passing here. Okay, but if you wanted to call a method of the child component, then we need an action override. So action override is an alternative of events. And by using this can be implemented, action override only works when you have a child parent connection. That means when you have a relation between the parent and child parent environment. If it is an individual component, then it doesn't work. When you have a relation between the two components, this is a parent, this is a child. If you have that kind of a relation between the two components, then only we can implement the action override. So basically action override enables to call a child component method from client side controller by a parent component directly. We will see how to do that. So in order to implement this, we need to use the Aura colon method. We need to define in the child component. We need to define this method in the child component. Now, when we are using the Aura colon method, Aura tag, so there are certain attributes for this. First one is a name. Name is nothing but we need to specify what is the name of that attribute. So if I have to give a different scenario, now I have this apex. Okay, inside this apex, I have a method 1, method 2, method 3. This is my apex. Right, inside this, I have a method 1, method 2, and method 3. What I am doing here, this is a class. Within the class, I'm writing another subprogram. When I'm writing a subprogram, I'm giving a name to it. Why I'm giving a name? Because let's suppose that I have another apex class. This is another apex class. Let's say that this is apex class 2. This is apex class 2. Now this apex class 2 wants to call this particular method. So how we will call it? From here, I'll directly call using the apex class name. I directly go to the method 1. Like whatever the class name is there, C1 dot, then I'll say M1. Like this, I'll call, right? So what I'm doing in this case, assume that this is a parent component and this is a child component. Same concept in action override. In the action override, so I have a, in the action override, I have a, this is my child component. This is child component. Inside the child component, I'm implementing a method. What is this method here? This method is called Aura method. This method is called Aura colon method. For this method, I'm giving a name to it. Which is a M1. So this method name is M1. Why I need this name? Because outside I have a parent component. Here I have a parent component. This is my parent component. This is my parent component. From this parent component, I can directly call the child method. How can I call the child method? Basically, I need to give a child component name. So here we will be giving the child component name. Let's assume that Aura ID. So we have to define a Aura ID within the parent component. Let's say that it has a Aura ID name is child. So child dot, I'll be calling the M1. Child dot M1. So from the parent, I'm directly calling the child component method. So how I'm calling it? By specifying the child component name and the method 1. Now while calling this, I can pass the attribute. Like if I wanted to pass the attribute of first name, last name, or anything, if I wanted to pass, I can pass directly the information. So for that, we need a name here. So name will be like this component dot, whatever the name is there, the name, and then you will be passing the parameter from the parent component. And the action Action is the client side controller action to execute. Like which one do you wanted to execute? So what action needs to be performed? So on this, so that we will be specifying in the action override while defining the action override itself, we will be specifying that. Now we will see that. So whenever this particular method is called invoke or something call some method. Okay, so then we have an access. What kind of a access, like a global access or a public access? If you do not specify, it is by default a public. Now description, if you wanted to add any method description, what is this method is all about it. Now here name and action is important, rest of all are not important. Now let's go ahead and see one of the scenario. Now let me go to the developer console.
Swapna,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a doubt. You said that only application event we can use to do parent-child communication, right? At the moment, what we have learned so far.
Not
Application
only
event.
the parent child,
Yeah,
everybody
it can.
can call.
Yeah, it can be child to parent also, correct?
Yes,
Everything. Okay.
everything. It
And
is
when,
from the
yeah,
child to parent, parent to child.
yeah. And when you say parent to component, you mean parent component to child component, right?
Yes, this is a child component.
Okay. And what if the parent is the application? In the application there are many components, correct? So
Mhm.
in that case also application event works, correct? Parent application and child component.
Yes.
That's in that it works.
Application event is everybody, including the
Everybody.
application. Yeah.
Application itself. Okay. And the action override works for everything that application event works for, right?
So action override is when you have a relation between the two components. We are not talking about the application here. When you have a relationship between the two components, that's how you can implement the action override.
If there were components, like they were siblings, not parent child, we cannot do action override, correct?
No, you need to have a relation. Siblings
Relationship.
cannot have a relation.
So
Only
this is more of like component event, but in the opposite way,
it
correct?
is opposite of the component event. So
Yeah,
component
component, okay.
event is just on the upside. It's a bubbling.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
action override is inheritance.
Downwards. Got it. Okay, thanks.
So let's see one example so that we'll get the clarity. So right now I'm going to implement the child component. File, new lightning component. So let's say that LC underscore child component. Let me copy this. Now click on submit. Now, so far what we have done is, let's suppose that in the child component, I have a two fields. Like on the lightning card, let's say title equal to action override child component. Action override child component. Now within this lightning card, what I'll do is, whatever the data is entered in the parent component, name entered in parent, I'll be displaying here. Like city entered in child, sorry, city entered in the parent component, in the parent. Now for this, I need an attribute. So that attribute, what I'll do is I'll declare it here, aura colon attribute. Name equal to, let's say that employee name. Type equal to, let's say this is string. Now this is employee city. So whatever is coming from the parent, I'll be storing into the employee name, and that data I'll be displaying here. That data I'm displaying here. This is fine. Now, child component has to enable so that whenever the parent is passing the data, it can listen to that. So in order to enable that, what I'll do is I'll implement a Aura method here. Aura : method. For this, we have a name. I'll just give us some name here. Action override method, A override. Right? This is my method name. Let me note down. So this is my method name. I'm giving a method name, action. So action, let me call, whenever it hit this method, I need to invoke something. C dot handle action or handle method. Now this is my Aura method. Now, okay. So here in the Apex, we can declare the variables at the Apex level like this. Public, I can declare the attributes or variables within the Apex class. ACC name. Also within the method name also I can declare it. Within the method name also I can declare it. But what is the difference if I declare in the method when I declare in the Apex class? What is the difference if I declare the variable in here and when I declare the variable in the Apex? What is the difference that we can see?
One is
They are private to them.
accessed by all the methods and one is accessible by only single method.
So whatever we have written in the method 1, this is accessible only within this method. When we have written this can be accessed by the method 1, method 2, method 3. Anybody can access. Now similarly, in child component, I can declare my own attributes within this method. There are attributes here. In the child component, I can declare Aura : attribute. This can be accessed by anybody. Now same Aura attribute I can declare within the Aura method also. I can declare within the Aura method also. So here within the Aura method, Aura : attribute name equal to. This is method name. Now I'll tell you where this is going to be used. Method name type equal to string. Now I'm declaring the method name, method mname mcity. Method name, method city. Okay, so I have declared the attribute. Just whatever the parent is passing, I'm showing the details here. We are not doing anything in the child component. We are not doing anything in the child component. Now I'll go to the handle method, which is a controller. Let's go to the controller. In the controller, now, whatever the parent is passing, I need to listen here. Whatever the parent is passing, I need to listen the data. Okay, I'll come to this listening part later. Now, first what I'll do is I'll implement the parent. Now let it be this. Now let me go ahead and create a parent component. Now this is my parent component. Now inside this in my parent component, what I'll do is I'll call child component. I'll call the child component, C : child component. Let me give a name to it. Aura ID equal to, let's say that C component. Perfect. So I'm calling the child component and I have given a Aura ID here. Assume that in the parent component, I have a two fields where the user is entering the data. Aura colon attribute name equal to, let's say that this is parent name. And the type equal to string. Similarly, I need a city. Okay. Now, let me add the input lightning colon input. Now label equal to, this is a name, user is entering the name here. I'll capture the value. I'm capturing the value into the curly braces exclamation v.p name. And then I'll have a place and or city. Here I'll be using the p city. Now, once a user has entered, then I'll have a button here, lightning colon button, label equal to, let's say submit. On click equal to, I'm calling it on click of that button, C dot handle submit. Now, whenever the user enter this information, they will click on a submit button. Once they click on a submit button, click on this submit button, I'm going to call the child component method. On click on the submit button, I'm going to call the child component method. I'll add the lightning card. This is the parent component. Right, and then I'll add another card to display the child component. Okay, so as soon as the user enter this data, it will hit this controller. When the user is hitting the submit button, now first thing I need to capture whatever the user has entered the data. In order to capture that, first I'll use component.get v dot. We have a p name, whatever the user has entered, I'm capturing that data. Let me store that data into, let's say, name. Similarly, we have a city. I'll store it into the city. Now I capturing the data. Now the second step which I need to do is, I need to call this child component. Now how I'm going to call this child component? Here, directly I'm calling the method. Which method I'm calling it? In the child component, I have a method here, right? Method name is a override. So what I'll do is, first I need to identify my child component. So for that, I'm using the Aura ID. So Aura ID component.find Aura ID. find my child component. Find my child component. Now, once the child component is identified, now next thing is that call a method. Call the method. My method name is a override. When you are calling the method, it is expected 2 parameters. It is expected 2 parameters. My method is expecting 2 parameters here. Method is expecting 2 parameters. One is mname, mcity. So which is I'm going to pass the name and then I'm going to pass the city. Now I'm passing these details to child component. Whenever this method is hit by when the parent is hitting this method by passing these details, immediately my action will be hitting it. That means handle method, whatever the handle method is there, it will hit. When it will hit, I need to listen what is the parent is sending the data. I need to listen what is the parent is sending the data, which is event.getParam. Event.getParam. Now, how can I listen this here? Can I say anything here or is it a specific? Now, parent component is just calling the child component and calling the method. While calling the method, it is passing the attribute. It is passing the attribute. Now, whenever in the child component, whenever this method is hit, event.getParam. Event.getParam. If you remember in the application event, we used to call here the application event attribute name. But in this case, in the action override, I just need to say arguments. I just need to say arguments. I need not to specify anything. Event.getParam arguments. Now this I'll store it into one variable. What it does basically, it will give the data or the calling component, whatever the parent component is there, everything it is going to call the information. All the details it is going to capture in this. Now, what I'll do is in this param dot, in this param, I have a certain details. What is the details that I have here? I can get the name and city. I can get the name and city. Whatever the name is there, that's the same name I can get it. So we are passing here name and the city. Now that's the same thing I'm passing here, name. Let me store this into the var nm. And the city var param city. Now, finally, in order to display that, I'll be storing into this attribute component dot set v dot employee name. Then finally, I have a nm component dot set v dot employee city. That's it. Now, this you need to remember for the action override, because event.getParam arguments is going to give you the everything that whatever you are passing here, everything it will hold it. Now, in this param, whatever the data you are passing it, that's the same data you need to capture here also. Name, city. Now, let me show you this. Let me place this into the application. Lightning application. C column, parent component. Now click on preview. Now this is parent component and this is a child component. Parent component and this is a child component. I'll just give a breakpoint so that it will be, or I'll give it as a paragraph. So if I'm giving here Salesforce, and if I say Hyderabad, click on submit. The data is not yet passed. Nice. So instead of passing the data, what I'll do is, let me do here. Salesforce. I'm hard coding it so that I'll know that whether the data is passed or not. Hyderabad. Now let me reload. Still it is not calling.
Submit button में.
No, I think the parameters are wrong. In the
Parameters
child,
are wrong.
I think so. This one, JS file of child, child component, JS controller file. Yeah, I think so. Here, param dot that p name and param dot p city, right? That's what I feel. I'm not very sure.
Param dot
P name. It should be param dot p name. What name we have used in child component? Can you please check?
it's a
Yeah,
M
m name. Yeah, m name and m city.
M name and M city. Let's refresh. Click on submit. Yeah, now it is coming. Now let's go to the developer console. Let's go to the parent component. Let's redo this. Now let's refresh. If I say Salesforce Dubai, click on submit. So it is displaying the data from parent component. So from the parent component, these two lines, component.find, you need to give a Aura ID to your child component. Aura ID to your child component. And then you need to call that particular child component dot whatever the name that you have given here. Whatever the name that you have given here, that's the same name you need to call from the parent. And you need to pass what are the attributes are that are expected here. If you have a 10 attributes, you need to pass the 10 attributes. If you have a 1 attribute, you have to pass the 1 attribute. In case if you do not have anything, also fine. There is no problem. So directly when this is passed, as soon as this method is called from the parent, it is going to hit this action. So in this action, we are going to get the parent component details, event.get param arguments. So arguments is the one which is going to give you all the information. Then here in this, you will have a certain details that is containing, in case if you are passing any data, the data, whatever the data is there. In case if you are not getting the information, what you can do is you can print here console.log. Console.log JSON.stringify, so that you know what are the data it is getting it. In case here, if you are confused, which name I need to take it here. So what you can do is you can print the param. When you print the param, it is going to give you that what is the data that is going to be captured from the parent, right? So that information you can directly place it here. Now let's refresh. Now let's say Salesforce. Click on submit. Now here you see mname, mcity, mname, mcity. So those are the same variables that I'm taking here. Those are the same name I'm taking here. And then I'm passing that data to the actual attributes of the component. That's the action override. Everybody gets confused about the action override, but it's a lot easier. Any questions on the action override? Okay. So homework, implement a lightning component to call the child component method from the parent and pass the variables to the child component. Now what you need to do is implement a parent component. In the parent component, you have a account name, account phone, account fax. Now enter this account name, account phone, account fax and click on a submit button. As soon as you click on a submit button, you have a child component. In the child component, whatever in the parent you are entering, pass it to the child component. Pass it to the child component. From the child component, call the Apex class. From the child component, call the Apex class and insert the record in the Apex class. Insert the record in the Apex class. Once you have inserted this data, you are not calling the Apex class from the parent. You are calling the Apex class from the child. The data is entered in the parent and you are passing the data to the child component. Child component on the, whenever the method is hit, immediately you need to call the Apex class. And in the Apex class, insert the data and return the value of the whatever the ID is their 18-digit ID, return it here SFDC ID. So that means from the child component, you are inserting a record in the Apex class. And then from the Apex class, you are returning the ID to the child component. Any questions on this? Okay, so the next one is similar kind of a thing. Implement a parent component and pass the data to the child component. From the child component, use the LDS program. We have already discussed the LDS program. Use the LDS program to insert without calling the Apex class. Without calling the Apex class, get the account name, phone, fax, and what you need to do in the child component is you need to implement the LDS program and then pass the whatever the final ID is there. Once it is saved, whatever the ID is there, print that ID here into the child component. Fine. So that's all for today. Questions? What are the different ways to pass the attribute values from the parent to child component?
Application events and override.
Application event,
Action override.
action override. What else? Passing the attribute value directly from the parent component. You can also pass the value to child. So 3 ways directly by calling the child component, you can pass the data and then application event and the child component event. Sorry, action override. What is the action override? What is the action override?
Calling child component from the parent component. Child component method from the parent component.
Action override enables you to call the child component method. Call the child component method directly from parent controller. Directly from the parent controller, you can call it. So how to call, what are the steps needs to be done or followed in order to implement the action override? What are the steps that we need to do? In order to implement the action override, what are the steps that we need to do? First step is in the child component,
Aura method.
we need to implement the Aura method. While implementing the method, you need to give a name,
And action.
a method, and action. You can call controller here. This is the first step. And what is the second step? What is the second step?
You can pass the parameters also in the Aura method.
In parent component, call the child component. Call the child component and specify the Aura ID. How you are going to do? So C colon child component, and then you will specify Aura colon ID equal to. So let's say that child. Now step 3. In parent controller. What we have to do in the parent controller?
Event dot.
We need to
Get the arguments.
in the parent controller.
Event.
Component dot find the child. Child is, our ID is child. Find the component and then call. Let me store this into the child. And then call the method. Child dot method name is a method. And then you can pass the details here. This is the step 3. And what is the final step?
The child component.
In child controller? What we have to do in child controller?
Event dot get argument.
We need to get the details from the parent. In order to do that, event dot get param. You need to say arguments. You need to say arguments and store this into one variable. And finally, get those details. If you are passing any data, the name of it, and then city, if you are passing the city, then you need to get the city values also. Whatever the data you are passing it from the parent component, get that information here. So these are the 4 steps. These are the 4 steps. Any questions on these steps?
Swapna,
Yeah.
there could be a scenario that, okay, we are passing value from parent to child, and then we are, after processing, we are passing values from child to parent. Even such scenarios can happen, right, in real time?
Yeah, in that case, you can use the
Yeah.
application event.
Application event. No, component event also we can use, right?
Component, then in that case, you need to use the 2 events. One is Aura method event, action override event, and then component event. Parent to child, action override, child to parent, component event.
Yeah, so that's what. So first we have to implement action override and then component event, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, today we have seen the application event use case and the action override. So that's all for today.